This is All For You Stories. Real stories to get you to think different so you can act different. Let's go. A penny. Mr. Thames is as close to the perfect tenant as you can get. Besides for asking for a few repairs here and there, he pays his rent a month early and keeps to himself. His reclusive nature makes this good for Mr. Thames as well. Not only is it in a prime location, but it allows him to keep to himself and not be bothered by anyone. All of this changed a few months ago when a lady in her mid-40s moved into the apartment above him with her 2 kids. At first, she seemed like most other mothers you see in the neighborhood, working 2 jobs to make life better for her kids. She loves her kids and describes them as mature beyond their years. She praises them to whoever will listen, including the first time they met Mr. Thames. As a loner who works from home, it is precisely what he wanted to hear. For the first couple of days, everything went well. The mother got into her routine of working a shift from 7 a.m. to 4, coming home and sleeping from 5 to 12. Then she took 2 buses to her second job from 12:30 until 6:30 a.m. The kids also adjusted to the schedule and behaved accordingly. They watched TV on low or silently read while their mother slept. This was the most peaceful part of their mother's day and had the extra benefit of satisfying their new downstairs neighbor. Everything changed on the 4th day. The mother went to work and the kids turned on the television with the volume so loud Mr. Thames thought he had left on his own television. Every scream, cry, and screech echoed through his apartment. Not only this, but they ran around the apartment with their feet pounding on the floor like a herd of buffalo. They bumped, thumped, crashed, and yelled nonstop. If Mr. Thames did not know it, he would have sworn a football team and their fans moved in upstairs. Mr. Thames did not complain to the mother when he saw her the following afternoon, hoping it was a one-time thing. But it wasn't. For the next 3 days, things got worse. The only peace Mr. Thames got was from 5 to 12, when the kids quieted down for their mother to sleep. This would not work for Mr. Thames. He decided the next time he saw the mother, he would inform her that her kids were not the angels she thought they were. He would let her know about the ruckus they caused each time she left and that it had to stop. The following day, a Sunday, Mr. Thames went to the early service at church so he could be home when the mother woke up. He took the usual seat in the back and smiled at people, but didn't speak to anyone. He did not stand through the service, but clapped several times during praise and worship. For the most part, it went just like most services. But Mr. Thames did find himself more interested when the pastor began his sermon by holding up a penny. He pinched the penny between his index finger and thumb while holding it above his head and in front of his face. He squinted his eyes as he spoke. We all can see this is just a penny. Probably the least valuable amount of currency we have. It's not a nickel, not a dime, not a quarter, and most definitely not a dollar bill. But if you take this little penny and hold it the right way, you can block out the sun. The pastor weaved together Bible verses and stories to explain how we should not let small things ruin the big picture. By the end, the congregation left the church while examining their own lives to determine what they were allowing a penny to block out. This included Mr. Thames, who left the church and went to the store wondering if the sermon was meant for him. He walked down the street to his apartment and noticed the kids in the window upstairs. The kids watched him, and Mr. Thames could not help but get upset looking back at them. The way they smiled made him think they knew how miserable they were making him and did it on purpose. Mr. Thames stared at them so intently he overlooked the rising part of the cement where a tree's roots had made the concrete uneven. He tripped over the elevated concrete, causing his bag to fly out of his hands and onto the pavement. Mr. Thames braced himself before he fell to prevent himself from getting hurt, but the carton of eggs on the top of the bag did not survive. He picked them up and opened the carton to see each egg cracked, with an egg yolk spilling onto his hands. He shook off as much as he could, gathered up the rest of his groceries, and peeked at the window where he expected to see the kids laughing at him. But they weren't there. After going into the house and putting up the groceries, Mr. Timms planned to go tell the mother about her wild kids. He opened the door to leave, and surprisingly, the mother stood at his door. This surprised both of them, and they both shrieked. After a couple of deep breaths, she spoke. "I'm sorry to pop up like this, but my kids are insisting that I give you these before I go to work." Mr. Timms took what she offered and opened the bag. Inside were 6 perfectly white eggs. Surprisingly, he thought of the sermon. Mr. Timms pictured the penny the pastor held up earlier. For him, the penny blocked out the fact that above him lived 2 kids who could be trusted to stay home alone so their mother could work. They cooked for themselves, took care of themselves, and most importantly, loved their mother enough to remain silent so she could sleep in the few hours she could. "Thank you," Mr. Timms said. She smiled and left for work. Mr. Timms put the eggs in the refrigerator. He found himself in the kitchen thinking more about the pastor's words. Sometimes things are as they are, but there are many times when you see what you want to see. If you want to see bad, you see bad. If you want to see ugly, you see ugly. But if you choose to, you can see something else. Mr. Timms went upstairs to do what he probably should have done to begin with. He knocked on the door and heard movement, but no one said anything. He waited a few moments and then barked out, "Thank you for the eggs, and stop making all that noise up here." The silence inside got even more silent. Mr. Timms left and went back to his apartment, and that night he slept like a baby. Thank you for listening. Please like, discuss it with someone, then do what you got to do. Peace.